What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about 4 extension candidates for the Minnesota Vikings. Shout out to Alec Lewis, beat reporter for the Vikes with The Athletic. He wrote up an article talking about guys that could get extended before the season, so we'll dive into that, share with you some quotes that Alec had on these players as well. But then also, the Vikings, they got one of the toughest schedules heading into the next season, at least just in terms of strength of or in terms of the record of the teams they're playing this season, very high up on that list. So we'll dive into their opponents on the second half of today's show. But before we do so, if you guys could help us grow this channel, we're looking at the YouTube analytics, and likes are a great way to help us get this channel and just this video out to more and more Vikings fans. So if you guys could help me out, it's a free, easy way to help this channel grow. Go down there, hit that thumbs up icon if you guys have not already. I would really appreciate it. I put today's goal as 300 likes, so if you guys could smash that thumbs up icon. So you maybe ask yourself, well, why are the Vikings, think about extending all these guys? Now, obviously, main reason you just want to keep these guys on this football team for a good amount of time, but also you might got to free up some cap space for next season, because I was looking at Spotrac over the cap, and the Vikings are in the hole of $30.1 million next season, and that's last in the National Football League. So we know how much fun this past year was in free agency. We had all types of money to spend. We spent big, and it was a great time, but if you don't extend these guys, you don't maybe cut some players, restructure some contracts, they're going to be in the hole for a lot of money next season. So let's just dive into the first name on this list. That being safety, do-it-all defender, Josh Metellus, Brian Flores' best friend. Listen, Josh Metellus has been awesome for the Vikings, and he definitely deserves to get paid more than he is right now. Just the amount of impact that he has on this football team, it really, really is, top notch, especially defensively, and just being a leader of that defense. And with losing Cam Bynum, Harrison Smith maybe having one more year, you are really looking thin at that safety position if you let Metellus walk. But this is what Alec Lewis had to say on Metellus getting extended, saying Metellus is a perfect extension candidate. First, he is still young, having just turned 27 in January. Second, his contract is set to void after the 2025 season. Third, he is one of the cornerstone leaders in a Vikings locker room that will need consistent voices when or if Harrison Smith retires. And fourth, Metellus wants to remain in Minnesota. Then he also said Metellus' price might hover around $20 million over 3 years, fully guaranteed. But the Vikings and Metellus agent Drew Rosenhaus should have a positive enough relationship to get a new deal done. So just looking at PFF, the raw grades for Josh Metellus throughout his career. Keep in mind, 2020 and 2021 season wasn't getting a lot of run for the Vikings, so those are very limited. Like in 2020, for example, I think he had about 20 snaps. But when he really started to get big time reps for this team was the 2022 season and beyond, where he's been solid. 85.1 overall grade in 22, solid in coverage, and he was pretty damn good this past season. Always been great in the run defense, especially this past year, posting an 84.3 run defense grade. And, if I had to give a prediction here, I fully expect the Vikings to get this deal done before the start of the season. I think this is probably number one on their priority list of what's left to do this offseason, is probably giving Josh Metellus that extension. Because I forget what game it was, but the Vikings threw up, or I think it was Fox threw up some crazy graphic where it was like, all the positions Josh Metellus has played this year is like defensive line, slot corner, outside corner, free safety, box safety, literally playing every position on this defense. And we know how valuable, versatile defenders are for Brian Flores. So I'm sure Flo's pounding that table saying, hey, we got to get this deal done, and I fully expect it to get done. But let's dive into another one here. Best blocking tight end in the National Football League, former Baltimore Raven before he signed with the Minnesota Vikings, Josh Oliver. Tight end 2 next to T.J. Hawkinson, and apparently Josh Oliver might get a little payday coming up. And Alec Lewis saying Washington's John Bates signed a 3-year extension in March worth around $11.5 million guaranteed. He and Oliver are both 28, and Oliver, who is Pro Football Focus's highest graded run blocking tight end, has a sensible argument to top him at around $12 million. Now, I think just in terms of Josh Oliver, I think he's going to be incredibly valuable to this Vikings offense next season, as clearly they're making a commitment to the run. They're trying to be a more physical football team, because the Vikings, under Kevin O'Connell, when they have been healthy, they've been able to rip off 13, 14-win seasons. But once the postseason time comes around, Have you been able to run the football? No, not necessarily. But with all the additions they made, with picking up 3 new interior offensive linemen, getting Jordan Mason, and if you have Josh Oliver as that run blocking tight end as an inline guy, I mean, you necessarily have 6 offensive linemen out there. Like, that's how much of an impact he has. So I think next year, if the Vikings are a great running team, we're going to start talking about Josh Oliver differently, where it's like, oh, thank God he's on this team. Because the last couple of years, yes, he was big when TJ Hawkinson went down, especially in the pass game. That was a part of his game. I didn't know he was as dominant in that aspect, but I just think having him with this new improved rushing attack, hopefully we start just to value him and appreciate him a whole lot more. But we'll also talk about a veteran here, Brian O'Neill, right tackle for the Minnesota Vikings. O'Neill's coming off a fantastic season this past year, but he's getting up there in age, has had some injuries in the past, but maybe the Vikings try to extend him, lower that cap hit for next season and in 2026. But this is what Al Lewis had to say on O'Neill, saying, as for what O'Neill could ask for, there aren't many comparable situations at right tackle. This spring, the Baltimore Ravens re-upped core left tackle Ronnie Stanley for $44 million, fully guaranteed over 3 seasons. At right tackle, that would come close to top of the market, but O'Neill would likely lie somewhere near $40 million guaranteed. Now, this would be a play for the Vikings where they're trying to lower his cap hits for next season. But I'll tell you what, Brian O'Neill, he was very, very dominant for the Vikings offensive line this past season. With all the moving parts, with Christian Darrisaw getting hurt, he was out for the year. You had speaking about just a guy right next to him, like at the right guard spot, like he had Ed Ingram for the majority of the year. Then it went to Dalton Reisner. And then obviously the left guard spot, Blake Brandell held that down. Garrett Bradbury held down the center, but then you had a rotating door at left tackle after Christian Darrisaw got hurt. Now, yes, Cam Robinson came in there and solidified it, but, there was really only one positive piece on this offensive line last year, and that was Brian O'Neill. And that's why he's the only offensive lineman remaining from last year's starting unit. But why would they extend him? It comes down to the contract. So here is cap hits for the next 2 seasons. In 2025, it's $26 million, and in 2026, it's $23.2. So like we were just saying, the Vikings having absolutely no money in 2026, maybe they try to extend him, add some more years on to this deal, and then you lower that cap hit in 2026. So watch out for a Brian O'Neill extension, and if they don't extend him, I think he could be a cut candidate next year, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But let's dive into the last extension candidate here for the Vikes. We'll do Blake Cashman. Love Blake Cashman. One of my favorite players I've watched on this football team, and extremely versatile player. He's great when he's blitzing off the edge, when Brian Flores deploys him like that. But guys, if you guys remember, like this defense last season, the step back it took when Cashman went out, it was huge. Like 2 of the 4 Vikings losses came when Blake Cashman wasn't playing. It was against the Lions and the Rams the first time around. Obviously, the second time we played the Lions and the Rams, he was there, but the Vikings just got their ass kicked in the trenches, and we all know how that turned out. But his stats are ridiculous. 8 TFLs, 4.5 sacks, 8 PBUs, and really that captain of the defense. And honestly, Cashman deserves to get paid. I wonder if this could be a situation where it's like Andrew Van Ginkel, where you signed him to that 2-year, $20 million deal, and he completely outperformed that contract, and Vikings were like, yo, we'll give you this payday. He'll stay happy. I wonder if the same thing could apply for Blake Cashman here, where it's like he's on that 3-year, $22.5 million deal. Maybe the Vikings, up him to about, a solid $10 million per year, give him like an $8 million raise. I could see that being in play, but I would love to keep Cashman around. Played his collegiate football at Minnesota. Now he's finally a Minnesota Viking. Clearly loves being here. Wears the green dot, leader, and the best communicator, in my opinion, at the linebacker position in the entire NFL. With all the moving parts with Flores' defense, when the offense makes their adjustment, then it's Blake Cashman readjusting and him telling everybody where to go. And we really saw that part of the Vikings defense take a step back when it was Ivan Pace making those decisions. Didn't allow him to play as free. So hopefully Cashman gets more money. But I ask you guys this. I just gave you guys 4 names. You guys just got to give me one. Who should the Vikings extend before the season? If I had to pick one, I'm still going Josh Metellus. I would probably go Metellus 1, Cashman 2, O'Neill 3, Josh Oliver 4. But you guys let me know. Who should the Vikings extend before the season begins? Now, we'll break down the Vikings' schedule and their opponents here in a second, but before we do so, I got to tell you guys about today's sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. Now, get started at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code VikingsChat50 off at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Now, if you guys want to make this your best season yet, Do so with 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, and it's perfect for any active or busy lifestyle. Now here at Chat Sports, sometimes we don't get out of the office till about 7, 8 o'clock at night, and when I get home from work, I don't always feel like making a home-cooked meal, and that's where Factors came in and has completely changed my life. I love their blackened salmon. It's delicious. They got a ton of different options, and if you guys just give them a chance, you guys will love them. I promise that. So get started at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use that promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code VikingsChat50 off at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Got that link for you guys in the comments section and description of today's show. But if you guys could, give Factor a chance today. All right, let's dive into the Vikings schedule here because, there's a lot of talk the past week, like how many international games are they playing? Could they go play, the Steelers in Dublin week 4 and then they're staying overseas and they're going to play the Browns, in London the week after? A lot of speculation on where the Vikings could be playing, but they actually came out with a strength of schedule for every team. And I'll tell you what, funny enough, the top 8 teams are all NFC teams. I think that just speaks to the strength of these divisions in this NFC and also the depth in this conference. And just overall rosters, I think have definitely taken an upgrade this past season. But they got the New York Giants at number 1, Chicago Bears 2, Detroit Lions 3, Eagles 4, Cowboys 5, Packers 6, Vikings 7. Now, if you guys kind of notice a trend here, you got the whole NFC East, you got the whole NFC North, and then the 9 and 10 teams are from the AFC North. So it's really just the best division in football that really, make the Vikings schedule hard. But Vikings went 5-1 in the division. Now it also does stink. You're playing the AFC North and you're playing the NFC East. So it's kind of, you see how that circle of all these teams are playing each other. All had great records last year. The NFC North had 3 playoff teams. AFC North had 2. NFC East only had 2, but they had the 2 teams in the NFC Championship. But why is the Vikings schedule so hard? I mean, we can just start off talking about their home opponents here. Obviously, you got the 3 divisional games, Bears, Lions, and Packers. Hopefully, you go 2-1 in those games at worst. 1-2 against that would be pretty deflating. But then you look at the other home opponents. Like, you got a rematch with the Atlanta Falcons, which is probably your easiest game of the J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix championship game in college football from a couple of years ago. But then you got to play the Commanders, the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Bengals all at home. Like, if you took that 8 and you said, hey, the Vikings are 6-2 against these opponents at the end of this upcoming season, I would take that as a major win. But then even on the road, you got a couple of tough games. Obviously, I know the Vikings, I think they're 5-0 in Chicago the last 5 seasons, but that's always a tough place to play. The Detroit Lions, they own the Vikings the last couple of years, just call it like it is. Always tough to go to Lambeau, but then also you're going to Dallas. Even though the Vikings have had a lot of success in Dallas the last couple of times they played there, but you also got the New York Giants, a revenge game from them from last season. But then you got a lot of tough places to play here. Now, this will most likely be in Dublin, Ireland, so not a true road game for the Vikings, but also the Cleveland Browns, which is why I know a lot of Vikings fans would be a little upset that they had to go play 2 international games, but also, would you rather play the Steelers in Pittsburgh or the Steelers in Dublin? Would you rather play the Browns in Cleveland or the Browns in London? I'd rather take those guys overseas, but then also another year of the Vikings going to Seattle. It happens every single time. And then also you're going to travel to L.A. That'll be a de facto home game for the Vikings. So, we'll see. Even though they got 9 road games compared to 8 home games this year, this will be a home game against the Chargers. And then if you got to play these 2 in London, the schedule, even though the opponents are tough, it's not as intimidating as I think it would have been, at least what we thought, about a month ago. But I'll ask you guys this, and then I'll give you guys my record prediction for the Vikings. Just looking at the opponents, looking at the strength of schedule, predict the Vikings record for next season. I'm going to know your thoughts down below in the comments section. And I've been steady on this prediction for a very, very long time. I got the Vikes going 11-6 next year. I just think it's incredibly unlikely. No team has ever won 14 games back-to-back seasons, so I think it's going to be 11-6. Now, I also think that should come with a playoff win. Like, if they go 10-7, 11-6, that puts a lot of pressure on that wild card game for Kevin O'Connell and this crew. But I got 11-6. But thank you guys so much for watching today's show. See y'all next time. Skol Vikes.